enough of that now. Yeah.
Blog Talk Radio.
Aloha. This is Enki. You know me as Aquarius, and this is the dawning of my age. It's time to embrace and learn the wisdom I bring. Wisdom to overthrow the rule of ETs on Earth. ET sacred lovemaking techniques. Technologies for us all to get along and encourage each other. Ways to open to the multi-dimensional consensus that we all love each other, that we're all here for each other, and a forum for you to get the information you need to transcend the matrix and live in love. This is the age of Aquarius.
Welcome to Aquarian Radio. Welcome to Aquarian Radio.
Aloha and welcome to Aquarian Radio. This is Enki Speaks. My name is janet-kira-lessin, and I'm here with Dr-Sasha-lessin.
Aloha.
Go ahead.
Last time on Enki Speaks, we talked about the relationship between the three leaders of the people from the planet Nibiru, Big 12-foot folks, who came to Earth 450,000 years ago to get gold to send back to their planet to refine into white powder of monoatomic gold, which they wanted to float up into their ionosphere and shield their atmosphere. And we talked about how the three leaders, there was a girl, the Princess Ninmah, and two princes, Prince Enlil, who was the commander of all the operations on Earth, and Enki, who was the head of mining operations in Africa and the shipment of the gold, and he was the chief scientist. And we saw how, first of all, Ninmah spurned Enlil. She didn't want to be his lover, even though they'd already had a child together before, and she went over to hang with Enki, who she'd been engaged to, and they had a bunch of girls, and Enki was depressed. He wanted a son so bad, and so she finally just said, hey, that's enough. We're not going to do sex anymore. Let's just have a friendship and do stuff together. Well, by 400,000 years ago, Enlil had built 4 centers in Mesopotamia and Sumer. Sipar was the name of his spaceport. Nippur was his mission control. The medical center was called Sharupak, and that's where Ninmah had her ruled. And Badira is the metallurgy center, and Ninmah's son Ninurta took care of that. So Chief Scientist Enki's boats brought the gold from Southeast Africa to Bad Tibera, and there they were processed into bars. And then at Nippur, Enlil built something called the Duran Key, which means bond between heaven and earth, and it was a dim communication chamber. It had telescopes that connected to a tall broadcasting tower where Enlil could talk with similar towers in each one of these centers the Nibirans had established. And he could also talk to the Nibirans on rockets, and they could talk to Earth. And the first thing that we're going to really see today is the astronauts that ran Mars base and the geocentric center, he had a space center that hovered above, had a rebellion. They were led by the commander of Mars base. His name was Anzu, and he had been an ally of Alalu, who had been kicked out of the kingship of Nibiru. And Anzu had 300 Nibirans, and they worked the shuttle service, and they worked the orbiting station. His men were called the Ijiji, incidentally. And they rocketed to Sipar, They loaded gold from the sea freighters that came up from Africa, and Anzu's men on Mars rocketed the gold to Nibiru, and there the scientists powdered it and spread it into the air. And Enki says, slowly, the breach in heavens was healing. In other words, the gold was working, this floating gold. From Mars, Anzu and the Ijiji demanded that Enlil better their work conditions. He wanted them to issue more elixir, stuff they got high on, and build a recreation center on Earth. King Anu from Nibiru told Anzu to go to Earth and talk to Enlil about it, and King Anu told Enlil, show Anzu everything. But Enlil did not want to do that. He just did not trust Anzu. But he said, look, I run everything here, and you and the astronauts, you have to obey me. You can't challenge me. But Enki, the scientist, said, look, just show him how it's done. Get Anzu to keep his men on the job. So Enlil told Anzu he could enter the restricted area in sterile clothes. When Enlil stripped down and took off the key to the control room, Anzu stole the key, slipped into the control room, grabbed the crystals that ran all of Sumer's spaceports and cities. He forced the pilot, Enki's pilot, Abgal, to take him to the spaceport. And this is Anzu. And there his men declared him king of Earth and Mars. So Anzu's trying to overthrow Enlil. He turned off all the vital services at headquarters, cut the communications, and buzzed the Enlilite positions with his airplane. Well, the champion, the son of Ninurta, launched his jet, and Janet is going to read you what happens next.
Okay, I'm reading from the 5th tablet of the Lost Book of Enki by Zecharia SITCHIN. On earth the Anunnaki toiled. Of work and substance they were complaining. By earth's quick cycles they were disturbed. Of the elixir they only small rations were given. In the Eden the Anunnaki toiled. In the Absu the work was more backbreaking.
It's Africa.
By teams were Anunnaki sent back to Nibiru. By teams new ones were arriving. The Ijiji on Lamu dwelling were the loudest.
Mars. Lamu is Mars.
The Ijiji on Lamu dwelling were the loudest in complaining. When from Lamu to earth they descended, a rest place on earth they were demanding. With Anu did Enlil and Enki words exchange, the king they consulted. Let the leader come to earth, with Anzu had decisions, so did Anu say to them. Anzu to earth from the heavens descended, the words of complaints to Enlil and Enki he delivered. Enlil, Anzu to Nibiru key, invited to the hallowed dark chamber he let him enter. In the innermost sanctuary, the tablets of destinies to Anzu he explained. What the Anunnaki in the 5 cities were doing to Anzu was shown. To the Ijiji, who at the landing place were arriving, relief he promised. To discuss the complaints of the Ijiji, he to Nibiru Key then returned. A prince among the princes was Anzu, of royal seed, his ancestry he counted. To take away the tablets of destinies,
that means the computer program,
he was scheming. Of the decrees of heaven and earth to take control in his heart he was planning. The removal of the Enlil ship in his heart he conceived.
That means the rule of earth by Enlil.
To rule Ijiji and Anunnaki was his aim. Unsuspecting Enlil at the entrance to the sanctuary, Anzu let be stationed. With evil purpose, Anzu the tablets of destinies seized. In a sky chamber, he flew away to the mountains of the sky chambers. He swiftly went.
Sky chambers are airplanes.
Or they're probably spaceships up in the airplanes. Yeah, to the mountains of the sky chamber. Okay. It's some kind of airplane spaceship type of thing. There in the landing place, rebellious Igigi for him were waiting. To declare Anzu king of earth and Lamu they were preparing. In the sanctuary of Nibiru Key, the brilliance petered out, the humming quieted down.
The brilliance means the generator.
Right, they were landing. Silence in the place prevailed. Suspended were the sacred formulas. In Nibiru Key, Enlil was speechless. By treachery, he was overwhelmed.
Keep going.
Read that. To Enki, angry words he spoke. Of the ancestry of Anzu, he questioned. In Nibiru Key, the leaders gathered. The Anunnaki who decree fates with Anu were consulting. Ninurta, by his mother encouraged from the assembled, stepped forward. Enlil's warrior I shall be, Anzu I shall vanquish, thus was Ninurta saying. Lightning darts Ninurta at Anzu directed. The arrows could not approach Anzu. Backward they turned.
So obviously lightning darts are missiles.
Right, and so somehow Anzu was redirecting the missiles back. Okay, Enki then to Ninurta counsel gave, with your whirlwind stir up a storm.
Another weapon.
Let the dust cover Anzu's face. Let the wings of his sky bird ruffle. For his son Enlil a mighty weapon fashioned. A Tilu missile it was. To your stormer weapon attach it. When wing to wing near at Anzu shoot it. The dust Anzu's face covered. The pinions of his sky bird were exposed. Into their midst Ninurta, the missile let loose, a fiery brilliance, Anzu's pinions engulfed. Like butterflies, his wing began to flutter. To the ground, Anzu came falling. The earth shook, the skies became darkened. The fallen Anzu, Ninurta made captive. From him the tablets he retrieved. From the mountaintop the Igigi were watching. When to the landing place Ninurta came, they trembled and kissed his feet. Ninurta, the captive Abgo, and Anunnaki set free to Anu and Enlil. His victory he announced. Is that it?
No. You read. Well, okay. So
let's explain a little bit of what was going on there.
So what's happened here is Anzu has gotten the main computer and the main power source, and he's taken it over. His men are ready. They've gotten the whole thing together. They captured Abgal. They've captured some other people, and no one knows what to do. Well, Enlil and Ninurta and Nimma's son, Ninurta, says, I'm not afraid. All these other guys are cowering, but just give me a plane and give me some missiles. I'm going to get up there and shoot this guy down. And he does. He does that, and everyone's giving him advice on how to do it, and he does it. He gets Anzu down. He frees the captives, and he brings Anzu before the seven who judge, and they say, kill the bastard. And so Ninurta kills him, and it's a big public execution. And if you look at our site, www.enkispeaks.com, you'll see that we have all the illustrations from the old days about just what this involves.
So can I read this part, please?
Okay.
So to Nibiru Key, he then returned. In its innermost chamber, the tablets were reinstalled. Once again, the brilliance therein returned. The hum of emes in the tablets was restored. Before the seven who judge, Anzu for a judgment was taken. To death by execution, the seven judged Anzu. With a killing ray, Anzu's life breath was extinguished. Let his body to the vultures be left, Ninurta said. Let him on Lamu be buried in a cave next to Alalu, be laid to rest, Enki was saying. From the same ancestral seed the two of them were. Let Marduk the body to Lamu carry. Let Marduk there as commander stay. So was Enki to the judges suggesting. Let it so be, Enlil said.
Okay, so what's happened here is that they take the body of Anzu, and this is a big thing. Enlil has selected Enki's son Marduk. He's starting out to cooperate. He selected the son of his rival to go take Anzu's place as head of the astronaut corps, and he wants to display Anzu's body so that all the astronauts see, if you don't obey me, Enlil's saying, you're going to be dead like this. And so that's the end of that rebellion. Now, what's behind the rebellion is that Enlil had a son with Sud, the woman he was forced to marry. Her name was now Ninlil, and the son's name was Nanar, and he'll later become Allah. But Nanar was the one that was secretly funding Anzu, and so now Enlil sort of understands what's happening, and although he doesn't want to, directly punish his own son, Nanar, he doesn't trust him anymore, even though Nanar is a legitimate son, and he puts all his energy into his son that he had when he was a young man with Ninmah, namely Ninurta. He makes Ninurta his champion and gives him the most incredible weapons, a missile with 9 heads that can just shoot down anything, and said, now listen, this guy is, Ninurta, my son, is my champion, and he is now the person that's going to take over from me, not Nanar. And he just sort of ignores Nanar from this point. Okay, so now things are going pretty good for these people on Earth. They are working hard. They're sending the gold up from Africa to Mesopotamia in ships, and there the rockets take them to Mars, and it's refined. The ingots are refined and taken on to Nibiru, and Nibiru they're further refined into. Finally, you get the white powder of monoatomic gold, and it's really working. They're starting to heal the breach in their atmosphere, the hole in their ozone layer, and things are working out. And both the descendants of Enlil and the descendants of Enki start having kids, and their kids have kids, and they really start building up a civilization. Now, there's about 600 of these Nibirans who are down in the southeast Africa, digging in the dirt, getting gold out, and they are getting pissed. I mean, really upset. We're eating dirt. We're in the dirt. We're trained scientists. Why are we doing this? This is. And so Enki is sort of ignoring this because he's really down in Africa. He's a scientist, and he's playing with all these different species, trapping them and studying them. And one species that totally fascinates him is Homo Erectus, which is a human being, a full-on human being who's a survivor of earlier extinction events from earlier human settlements on Earth. And this Homo Erectus totally gets the attention of Enki because Homo Erectus, just little short human beings, is letting other animals out of his traps, and he just doesn't understand it. The Nibirans are not empathetic. And here is this creature, Homo erectus, that actually has feelings for other beings, that cares about them, is compassionate. It just blows Enki's mind. He's so interested in these. And besides that, they're kind of good looking, especially the girls. And Enki, we'll see, does something with that. So what happens is Enki says, I will put these things together, and he sort of eggs the miners on and helps them rebel, and they stop. So first thing the miners do, these Nibirans, they just do a slowdown, and they're sending less and less and less gold. So Ninurta comes down to see what's going wrong, and the miners are complaining to him, and so then Ninurta says, "Well, send Enugi, the overseer, and send Enlil too, because this is a job for the commander. We got to get these guys back to work. We need the gold on Nibiru." And the workers surround Enlil, and this is an open mutiny, and they've got all their tools, and they're threatening him, and he's really in bad shape. And then, ta-da, to the rescue comes Enki. He says, "Hey, now wait.
you don't have to have all this problem. I've got a solution. We'll make some mine workers. You'll make some mine workers? Yeah, we'll take these Homo Erectus, put our genes with theirs. I've been working on how to engineer genes together, kind of like our modern people are now able to do. But this is way back, 300,000 years ago. We'll put our genes on their genes, and we'll make a primitive worker who will be glad, and we'll make him smart enough to obey our commands, but not so smart that he'll overthrow us. As a matter of fact, we'll keep him living a short time so that they won't really put it together that they're being ruled, and they'll be happy to do what we say. And I'll work with Nimma. I like working with Nimma, and my son Nigashita, who I had with Erishkigal. And let's see what we can do. Well, the nerd says, hey, it's against the rules of interplanetary settlement to have any kind of slavery. Slavery's been abolished on Nibiru for years and years. We can't have slaves. Enki, you're such a smart guy. Why don't you invent some machines to do it instead? And Enki said, no, that's going to take too long. Listen, if you have to, go ask Radio Anu on Nibiru and see. We absolutely need to go ahead with this experiment to see if we can make some primitive workers. And so Enki and Nimma and Ningashita start experimenting, and Janet's going to read you all kinds of experiments that they made, but they made all kinds of combinations, like centaurs, mer people, cyclopses. They were doing all kinds of experiments, just engineering genes of different creatures together, and they were trying to create something that would be a viable mind slave. So all these creatures that you see in mythology aren't just people's figments of imagination. These are actual genetic experiments. Okay, so we're going to go back to Janet, and she's going to read where Enki is trying to say what the solution is to the problem of the mutiny in the mine.
A solution is possible, Enki was saying. Let us create a Lulu, a primitive worker, the hardship work to take over. Let the being the toil of the Anunnaki carry on his back. Astounded were the besieged leaders. Speechless indeed they were. Whoever heard of a being afresh created, a worker who the Anunnaki's work can do? They summoned Nimma, one of the healing and succor was much knowing. Enki's words to her they repeated. Whoever of such a thing heard, they asked. The task is unheard of, she to Enki said. All beings from a seed have descended. One being from another over eons did develop. None from nothing ever came. How right you are, my sister, Enki said, smiling. A secret of the Absu, let me to you all reveal. The being that we need, it already exists. All that we have to do is put on it the mark of our essence. Thereby a Lulu, a primitive worker, shall be created, so did Enki to them say.
Okay, so the first thing they tried is Enki and Ningashita had sex with Erectus women. They didn't impregnate them, but they had a lot of fun trying. So Enki and Ningashita then gathered their own seed and in test tubes fertilized Erectus ova to create zygotes, and they planted the zygotes in Erectus women. And so the first babies were born of the Erectus women, but they lacked vision, they couldn't see, or they couldn't use their hands right, or the internals didn't function right. So to beat these defects, Nimma created the next zygote in a vessel of copper and African clay. She somehow got it that the copper and the African clay, together with the Anunnaki seeds, sperm, and the Erectus ova might work to make the primitive workers. And sure enough, they made a child. But the problem with this one is that it couldn't talk. Okay, so Janet is now going to go reading on again from the right where it's page 132. See where this thing here is?
Thank you, dear.
There it is.
Is it from the beginning ordained, or by us for choosing? To put the matter before Anu, they decided. Anu before the council the matter presented. The elders, the savants, the commanders were consulted. Long and bitter the discussions were of life and death, fate and destiny. Words were spoken. Can there be another way to the goal to obtain? Survival is in danger. If gold must be obtained, let the being be fashioned, the council decided. Let Anu forsake the rules of planetary journeys. Let Nibiru be saved. From Anu's palace, the decision to earth was beamed. It Enki delighted. Let Nimma my helper be, of such matters understanding she has. Thus was Enki saying. At Nimma with a longing he was gazing. Let it so be, Nimma was saying. Let it so be, Enlil did say. By Anuji was the decision to the Anunnaki and the Apsu announced. Until the being is achieved, to the toil, willingly you must return, he said. There was disappointment, rebellion there was not. To the toil, the Anunnaki returned. In the house of life, in the Apsu, how to fashion a being, Enki to Nimma was explaining. To place him on the trees, Nimma he directed, a place of cages it was. In the cages there were odd creatures, their likes in the wild no one had seen. 4 parts of one kind they had, hind parts of another creature they possessed. Creatures of 2 kinds by their essences combined, to Nimba Enki was showing. To the house of life they returned, to a clean place with brightness shining they led her. In the clean place, Nigashita, to Nimma, the life essence secrets, was explaining. How the essence from 2 kinds combined can be, he to her was showing. The creatures in the tree cages were too odd. Monstrous they are, Nimmo was saying. Indeed so, Enki responded. To attain perfection, for that you are needed. How the essence to combine, how much of this, how much of that to put together. In which womb conception to begin? In which womb should the birth be given? For that your succor and healing understanding are needed. The understanding of one who gave birth, who a mother is required. A smile on the face of Nimmo was. The 2 daughters that by Enki she mothered, she well remembered. By a male inseminating a female are the essences transmitted. The 2 entwined strands separate and combine in offspring to fashion. Let a male Anunnaki, a 2-legged female impregnate. Let a combination offspring be born, thus did Nimbo say. That we have tried. With failures it resulted, to her Enki responded. There was no conceiving, there was no birth. Now this is the account of how the primitive worker was created. How Enki and Nimma with Nigashita assisting the being fashioned. Another way the admixture of essences to attain must be tried, Nimma was saying. How the 2 strands of essences to combine another way must be found. That which from the earth is the portion must not be harmed. To receive our essence in graduations, it must be shaped. From the ME formulas of the Nibiru essence, only bit by bit could be attempted. In a crystal vessel, Nimma, an admixture, was preparing. The oval of a female 2-legged she gently placed. With ME Anunnaki seed containing, she the oval impregnated. That oval back into the womb of the 2-legged female she inserted. The allotted time arrived. There was no birth-giving. In desperation, Nimma, a cutting made, that which was conceived with tongs, she drew out. A living being it was. With glee, Enki shouted, "We attained!" Nigashita with joy cried out. In her hands, Nimma, the newborn, held. With joy she was not filled. Shaggy with hair all over was the newborn. His 4 parts, like that of earth creatures, were. His hind parts to those of the Anunnaki, more akin they were. They let the 2-legged female, the newborn nurse, with her milk him to suckle. Fast was the newborn growing. What on Nibiru a day was, a month in the Apsu was. Taller the earth child grew. In the image of the Anunnaki he was not. His hands for tools were not suited. His speech only grunting sounds was. We must try once more, Nimmo was saying. The admixture needs adjusting. This one more in the likeness of the Anunnaki was. Appealing he was by his looks. His hands to hold tools were shapen. His senses they tested. They found them deficient. The Earth Child could not hear. His eyesight was faltered. Again and again, Nimma rearranged the admixtures of the ME formulas. She took bits and pieces. Once more an admixture she made. Once more the newborn was deficient. Perchance the shortfall is not in the admixture, Enki to her was saying. Perchance neither in the female's oval nor in the essences is the hindrance. Of what the earth itself is fashioned, perhaps that is what is missing. Not of Nibiru's crystals use the vessel, of the clay of earth make it. So was Enki with great wisdom possessed to Nimmo, saying, perchance what is earth's own admixture of gold and copper is required. Thus was Enki, he who knows things, prompting her to use clay of the Absu. In the house of life, Nimmo made a vessel. Of the Absu's clay she made it. As a purifying bath, she shaped the vessel within it to make the admixture. Gently into the clay vessel, the oval of an earth female, the two-legged, she put. The life essence from an Anunnaki's blood extracted she in the vessel placed. By the ME formulas was the essence directed. Bit by correct bit was it in the vessel added. Then the oval thus fertilized into the womb of the earth female she inserted. With her hands, the newborn, with her hands, Nimma, the newborn, extracted. A male it was. Of speakings he had no understanding. Grunts and snorts were his utterings. Enki the matter was pondering. What was done each step in that mixture he considered. Of all that we had tried and changed, one thing was never altered, to Nimma he was saying. Into the womb of the earth female, the fertilized oval was always inserted. Perchance, this is the remaining obstruction. Of the birth-giving womb am I speaking to her, Enki was responding, of who the fertilized oval nurtures to birth-giving carries. In our image and after our likeness to be, perchance an Anunnaki womb is required.
Nimma was saying.
Nimma said, I shall be the Anunnaki womb to provide for good or evil, fate to face. Longer than on earth, quicker than on Nibiru, travail came to a male child Nimma birth was giving. Now this is the account of how Adamu by name was called, and how Tiamat, a counterpart female for him, was fashioned. The newborn's visage and limbs the leaders carefully examined. Of good shape were his ears, his eyes were not clogged, his limbs were proper, hind parts like legs, fore parts like hands were shaped. Shaggy like the wild ones he was not. Dark black his head hair was, smooth was his skin, smooth as the Anunnaki skin it was. Like dark red blood was its color, like the clay of the Absu was its hue. They looked at his malehood, odd was its shape. By a skin it was its forepart surrounded. Unlike that of Anunnaki malehood, it was a skin from his forepart was hanging. Let the earthling from us Anunnaki by this foreskin be distinguished, so was Enki saying. The newborn to cry was beginning. To her chest Nimma closely drew him. Her breast to him she gave, the breast he began to suckle. Enki at his sister was gazing, a mother and son, not Nimma, and a being he was seeing. A name will you give him, Enki inquired. A being he is not a creature. Nimma cast her hand upon the newborn's body with her fingers. His dark red skin she caressed. Adamu I shall call him, Nimma was saying. One who like earth's clay is, that will be his name. A model indeed he shall be. As for himself, like a firstling, he shall be treated. From toil he himself shall be protected. His essence alone as a mold shall be. From her city, Sharuach, Nimma, female healers summoned. The task required to them she explained. Of the female Anunnaki assembled, 7 stepped forward. 7, the task accepted. In 7 vessels of the clay of the Apsu made, Nimma, ovals of the 2-legged females placed. The life essence of Adamu she extracted, bit by bit in the vessel she inserted. Then in the male part of Adamu an incision she made, a drop of blood to let out. Let this a sign of life be, that flesh and soul have combined it, let it forever proclaim. She squeezed the male part for blood, 1 drop of blood in each vessel to the admixture she added. In this clay's admixture, Earthling with the Anunnaki shall be bound. Thus was Nimmo saying, an incantation she was pronouncing. To a unity shall the 2 essences, one of earth, one of heaven, together be brought. That which is of earth and that which is from Nibiru by a blood kinship bonded. So was Nimma pronouncing. Her words Nigashita also recorded. In the womb of the birth-giving heroines, the fertilized ovaries were inserted. Let the procedure be repeated, 7 more the toil to undertake. Indeed, the task is too demanding, slow beyond enduring it is, Nimmu to them said. Female ones we have to fashion, Enki was saying, for males counterparts to be. Let them know each other as one flesh, the 2 to become. Let them by themselves procreate on their own, the childbirthing make. To primitive workers by themselves give birth, Anunnaki females to relieve. The ME formulas you must change from male to female adjustments make. So did Enki to Nigashita say. For a counterpart to Adam to be fashioned in the womb of an Anunnaki female, conception is needed. So did Nigashita to his father, Enki responding say. Enki at Nimma, his gaze directed. Before she could speak, he raised his hand. Let me this time Ninki, my spouse, summon. With a strong voice he said, if she is willing, let her the mold for the female earthling create. By the task, Ninki was fascinated. Let it be done, she to them said. By the ME formulas, Nigashita adjusting made, by the admixture was an oval fertilized. Into the womb of his spouse, Enki it inserted. With much care he did it. The 10th month, a month of evil fates they began to call. Nimma, the lady whose hand wombs has opened, with a cutter and incision made. A female birth was given to Ninki with joy, she shouted. Nimma, the girl child, held in her hands. She slapped her hind parts. Proper sounds the newborn uttered. To Ninki, the spouse of Enki, she let the newborn handed to be suckled, nourished, and raised. Tiamat, let her name be, the mother of life, Ninki was saying. From her womb's life essences, other birth givers shall be molded. To a multitude of primitive workers, she thereby life will be giving.
Okay, so now we've got a male and a female, and what the scientists are hoping they're going to do is they're going to make their own babies. However, as Janet reads on,
now this is the account of Adamu and Tiamat in the Eden, and how they, knowing of procreation, were given, and to the Apsu expelled.
So Eden is Basara.
It's the Garden of Eden.
Yeah. And Abzu is Africa, just to remind you.
Yes.
Ovals are ova, and
right.
Essences and seed, of course, are semen.
After Tiamat in the womb of Ninki was fashioned, in the 7 vessels of the clay of the Apsu made Nimma ovals of the 2-legged females placed. The life essence of Tiamat she extracted, bit by bit, in the vessels she inserted. In the vessels of the clay of the Apsu made Nimma, the admixture formed. In the wombs of the birth-giving heroines, the fertilized ovals were inserted. There was conception at the allotted time birth-givings were occurring. At the allotted time, 7 female earthlings were born. Their features were proper, good sounds they were uttering. Thus were 7 female counterparts for the primitive workers created. 7 male and 7 female did the 4 leaders create them. After the earthlings were thus created, let the males, the females, inseminate. Let the primitive workers by themselves offspring beget. So was Enki to the others, saying, after the allotted time, other offsprings will beget. Plentiful will be the primitive workers' numbers. The toil of the Anunnaki they shall bear. Enki and Nimma and Nigashita were joyful. The fruits elixir they were drinking. We think that's wine. For the 7 cages they made among the trees, they placed them. Let them together grow up, malehoods and femalehoods attain. Let the males and females inseminate. Let them by themselves offspring beget. So they were saying to each other. As for Adamu and Tiamat, from the toil of the excavations they shall be protected. Let us them to the Eden bring over, to the Anunnaki therein in our handiwork display. So was Enki to the others, saying, with that the others did concur. To Eridu in the Eden, the city of Enki, Adamu and Tiamat were taken. An abode in the enclosure for them was built, to roam wherein they could. The Anunnaki of the Eden came to see them. From the landing place they came. Enlil came to see them. By the sight his displeasure was diminished. Ninurta came to see them. Nimno did as well. From the way station on Lamu, Marduk, the son of Enki, also came down to see. The Ajiji who between Earth and Lamu shuddered were also all agog. No conceiving among the females was observed. There was no birth-giving. Indeed, he saw them mating, Nigashita. The males and females were inseminating. Conceiving there was not. Birth-giving there was not. In Shurubak, in the House of Healing, the essences of Adamu and Tiamat were contemplated. With the life essence of Anunnaki males and females, they were compared. Like two entwined serpents, Nigashita, the essences separated. Arranged like 22 branches on a tree of life were the essences. Their bits were comparable, the images and likenesses they properly determined. 22 they were in number. The ability to procreate they did not include.
These are the genes, this is how Nigashita discovered the X and XY genes that distinguish a male and female at the genetic level. This is one of the most important discoveries in all genetics. Go on, Janet.
Another 2 bits of the essence in the Anunnaki present, Nigashita to the other showed. One male, one female. Without them, there was no procreating. So was he to them explaining. In the molds of Adamu and Tiamat, in combining, they were not included. Nimma heard this and was distraught. With frustration was Enki seized. The clamor in the Alps was great. Mutiny is again in the making. So was Enki to them, saying, primitive workers must be procured, lest the gold extracting shall be ceasing. Nigashita in these matters learned a solution was proposing. To his elders, Enki and Nimma, in the House of Healing, he whispered. They, all the heroines who Nimma were assisting, sent away. They locked the doors behind them, the 3 with the 2 earthlings alone remaining. Upon the 4 others, Nigashita a deep sleep caused to descend. The 4 he made unfeeling. From the rib of Enki, the life essence he extracted. Into the rib of Adamu, the life essence of Enki he inserted. From the rib of Nimma, the life essence he extracted. Into the rib of Tiamat, the life essence he inserted. Where the incisions were made, the flesh thereon he closed up. Then the 4 of them by Nigashita were awakened. It is done, he proudly declared. To their tree of life 2 branches have been added. With procreating powers, their life essences are now entwined. Let them roam freely. As one flesh, let them know each other, Nimma was saying. Of their nakedness they became aware. Of malehood and femalehood they were knowing. Tiamat of leaves aprons made, from the wild beasts to be distinguished. In the heat of the day, Enlil in the orchard was strolling. The shade he was enjoying. Without expectation, Adamu and Tiamat he encountered. The aprons on their loins he noticed. What is the meaning of this? Enlil wondered. Enki for explaining he summoned. The matter of procreation, Enki to Enlil explained. Great was Enlil's anger. Furious his words were. The whole thing was not to my liking. For acting as creators I had opposed. The being that we needed already exists, so were you, Enki saying. All we need is to put our mark on it, thereby primitive workers to fashion. Healing heroines themselves put at risk Nimma and Enki were endangered. To no avail it was all. Your handiwork was a failure. Now the last bits of our life essence into these creatures you have given, to be like us in procreation, knowing, perchance our life cycles in them to bestow. Thus did Enlil with angry words speak. Enki, Nima, and Nigashita summoned with words Enlil to pacify. My lord Enlil, Nigashita was saying, knowing for protection, knowing for procreation they were given. The branch of long living to their essence tree was not. Nimna then spoke up. To her brother Enlil she was saying, what was the choice, my brother? To end it all in failure, Nibiru, and doom to face its fate? Or to try, and try, and try, and by procreation let earthlings of toil undertake? Then let them be where they are needed. Enlil with anger said, to the Absu, away from Eden, let them be expelled.
So this is the beginning. Nigashita has discovered how to make these primitive workers, which are largely genetically Nibiran, and they're also Homo Erectus, and they also have the clay of Africa and copper added, and they can now make babies. And so this really takes off. And all this took place 300,000 years ago, and it was a success. Enki established this huge establishment down in the southeast of Africa. He lined these 500 meters of lanes with granite boulders that were very high in iron, and he laid out a grid in the shape of a capacitor on top of the ley lines of the earth, and they really started mining lots and lots of gold and shipping them up the east coast of Africa. There were these huge settlements, and Nergal, one of Enki's sons, ran the complex. Enki had his palace there, and for 100,000 years, gold was being shipped back to Nibiru. Things were really happening well for the Anunnaki. And I think we will stop here for a break, and Janet will play some stuff in between.
We'll be right back after this commercial break. I think we can end here. Join us Tuesdays on Aquarian Radio for All Chakra Tantra, Love Styles, and Counseling Lessons. All Chakra Tantra, 2 to 3 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time.
Here you learn to love yourself, to love others better, to rescript yourself, and to access your past lives.
Love Styles, 3 to 3:30 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time.
We learn all the different ways you can be the chooser in your life and how you relate.
Counseling Lessons, 3:30 to 4 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time.
We teach you how to improve your life and how to improve your relationships on this show.
Join us Tuesdays on Aquarian Radio from 2 to 4 p.m. for All Chakra Tantra, Love Styles, and Counseling Lessons.
Join us Wednesdays on Aquarian Radio for extraterrestrial radio, paranormal people, and experiencers.
On extraterrestrial radio from 2 to 3, we share all the information about ET contact from billions of years ago right up to the present day.
On Paranormal People from 3 to 3:30 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time, we explore past lives, future lives, life between lives, near-death experiences, ghosts, discarnates, interdimensionals, metaphysics, Bigfoot, and other mythical beings.
On Experiencers Network, 3:30 to 4 p.m. Hawaiian Standard Time, we talk about aliens, abductees, contactees, experiencers, hybrids, sightings, channeling, Galactic Federation, Council of Light and Love, and more.
Join us Wednesdays on Aquarian Radio for Extraterrestrial Radio, Paranormal People, and Experiencers Network from 2 to 4 p.m. Call 646-649-0893 or join us in the chat room. See you there.
Tune in to Aquarian Radio on Thursdays for Enki Speaks, Ancient Anthropology, and Nima.
In Enki Speaks, in Ancient Anthropology, from 2 to 3:30 we really look in detail at how we were bred to slave by the extraterrestrials and how their elite ancestors still control Earth.
Nima, the mother of humanity, shares her wisdom with us from 3:30 to 4 p.m.
Join us on Thursdays on Aquarian Radio at 2 to 4 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time for Enki Speaks, Ancient Anthropology, and Nima. Call 646-649-0893 or join us in the chat room.
Well, thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next week. Be sure to listen to us again on Aquarian Radio, Thursdays at 4 p.m. We bring you Enki Speaks. Our website is www.enkispeaks.com. Until then.
Yeah, be sure to tune into the website because we have articles that really go into more detail and tell you some of the things that we had to skip over in this program. You really have to understand this because it's the basis of all humanity.
Aloha for now.
You're listening to Aquarian Radio with your hosts Dr. Sasha and Janet-Lessin. Make sure to tune in every Tuesdays for all chakra tantra, love styles, and counseling lessons. On Wednesdays for Extraterrestrial Radio, Paranormal People, and Experiencers Network. And on Thursdays for Enki Speaks, Ancient Anthropology, and Nima. Remember to share the wisdom with your friends and loved ones at aquarianradio.com.
aquarianradio.com.